Welcome. This lesson is about how to toggle the LEDs while testing the switch at the same time. And to do that, we're going to set up what's called pulse width modulation. So the first thing we need to do is open up the previous lesson. So in lesson 6, we looked at how to toggle the LEDs using a 0.5 second delay. And that worked somewhat. It registered that you'd press the switch and sometimes it didn't. Okay, so the better way to do that is using a cycle tool. And with the cycle tool, we can set up what's called pulse width modulation. And we might actually need to use 2 cycle tools. And I'll show you why. One of the cycle tools is going to have a count of 1. And so that means that it's going to say 1, and then the next count it's going to be 0. So on the first count at 1, it's false, and on the second count at 0, it's true. And then it's false, and then it's true, and then it's false and true, false and true. Okay, so that is going to toggle for us between our 2 different states, false and true. And we might actually put the false on the left-hand side and the true on the right. And we're going to move our states for the moment. I'm going to use Control X and then Control V. See that I can disconnect all of those link lines at the same time. Do it again, Control X, Control V. Okay, so that is my toggle. Oh, don't want to put the arrows the wrong way. I need to come out of the false and out of the true. Okay, now this next cycle tool is actually going to give us our timing. So we're going to put in a number here that's going to test for us, basically like a multiplier. Okay, switch tool. We're going to use that switch tool, and we're going to use that switch tool every single time that it is false. So let's make true on the top and false on the right. And we'll just put in the number 100 for the moment. So we'll put true on the bottom. Okay, so every time it's false, it's going to test the switch. That's correct. And if it gets to 100 cycles, then it toggles. Okay, and if the switch has not been pressed, we'll make it come back out the top. If it's not been pressed, then we want it to go back and count another cycle. We'll just annotate this one. So we've set 100 for the moment. Okay, and once it goes through the actual output, so it changes state, it still needs to go back, and it can either go back to a cycle or we can send it straight back to the switch. Okay, for another test before it goes to the cycle. Okay, so that's sort of how our little module is going to work, and we'll just make that a bit neater. Let's tie those 2 together, I think. Oh, move them back. Let's group that. Control clicking, and we'll distribute that. Okay, and we'll align these 2 vertically, and we might group that. So that's our pulse width modulation. So we have to come into our cycle tool, or we could come into the all on, which will go to our cycle tool, and it's going to count 100 times, 100 switches, and then it's going to toggle all off. Another 100 switches, toggle all on, 100 switches, toggle all off. Okay, and the way it exits that little program is it has to come out the true connector when the switch is pressed, and the way it gets into that one, we can put it straight into the cycle like that. Oops. Try again on the blue connector. There it is. Okay, so now let's hook up the true connector back to over here, and we should be good to go. So let's program, plug that one back in. this should work a lot better for us. And we'll unplug the programming socket. So center LED, 7 LEDs in a 7. Oh, didn't that flicker? Okay, so we're back to outer ring. So inner ring, center, inner, and oh, did that flicker again? Okay, so the problem is that I think we've got a press routine maybe on this one when it should be on release. Okay, so we'll try programming that again. So we're on inner ring, center LED, inner 7, and there it is flickering, and then we go back to outer ring. Now that's a bit fast for my liking, much too fast really. So we need to slow that down, and the way we do that, we can change this cycle, this top cycle, maybe up to 1,000. That's 10 times slower than what it's doing at the moment. So let's program that. So we're on center, inner 7, outer ring. Oh, that missed it, didn't it? How'd that work? So that's inner ring, center, 7. There's the flashing. It's still a bit fast, isn't it? Even at 1,000 cycles of that switch tool. So I'll slow that down again in here. Let's make that, I think, 3,000, and I'll update the value. Okay, so in a 7, there it is. Okay, so now it's doing what I want it to do, and it's flashing nicely. So the only thing we've changed there is we've used what's called pulse width modulation. So with flashing LEDs, or we could say with flashing LED toggle. Okay, because we're toggling between the two different states instead of using a delay. So thanks for watching. That's tutorial 7, and next tutorial we'll probably put it together a bit neater than that, and we'll have a look at some other things. But that essentially is everything that you need to learn about programming the PicoBright. So you can play around with putting in all sorts of different patterns in how things switch between states, and have lots of fun. See you then.